So thank you everyone for joining us this morning. This is a great turnout and we're happy to see so many coaches from across the country joining us today. We're really excited today to have Cindy with us. So Cindy Tai is the head coach of the women's soccer team at Dalhousie University. But besides that, she's also involved at the community, provincial, and national level. She's coached our past 3 Canada Games team, and most recently in the 2017 Canada Games, she led Team Nova Scotia to a bronze medal. And outside of that too, she is involved with the national program as a coach. And before that, she was an athlete with Acadia University, where she achieved a lot as an athlete and was part of the national program for 2 years. So we're really excited to have Cindy on here this morning to talk to us about leader as performer. And just a reminder to stick to the chat box during the presentation, and at the end we'll open it up for a Q&A. So Cindy, I'll get you to take it from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Kirsty, and thanks everybody. It's been great. I've been able to be on a few of these, and it's nice to connect with people across the country and across all sports, which is really cool. Today I'm going to take you through leader, coach as performer. So I'm in the middle of a coaching course, or Own the Podium, which allows me to be educated, outside of my sport in terms of what it means to be a leader and a coach, and digging into some details. So this was one that I've been in the last couple of years, and it's been able to give me a lot of time to do some self-reflection around why I do what I do, and how can I be better at what I do. And it's something that we as coaches don't often get a chance to do, and we are really actually in a really ideal time to do that now, because we have so much time. I started coaching when I was 18, 19 years old, and at Acadia took on some youth teams, and my journey as a coach has really been giving back to community and school, and then through some male mentors actually that gave me a little nudge to go a little bit further, got onto some provincial teams and Canada Games teams eventually, and also national teams with the U20. Now I'm with the U17s as an assistant and head coach of the U15s. So I'm at Dalhousie University as teacher for 15 years, and took the leap into full-time, like seeing myself, this is what I'm going to do. So seeing myself as a performer was never something that I thought of until the last 4 or 5 years, actually. I always thought of my athletes as performers, and I was just trying to keep it all straight, basically. But the last couple of years has been a great opportunity to do, like I said, a lot of self-reflection. And my mom always said, if you're not good, then you can't service anybody else around you. So you need to take care of yourself. So I'm just going to take you through here a couple things. So this slide here for me, I was going through it a couple weeks ago, actually, when Kirsty was asking me about this, just all of the things that we as coaches are responsible for or go through. Every single thing I could think of, put down for them. I'm well aware of the gift that it is to be able to give back, to impact, and I feel very lucky to be in a profession where I get to love going to work every day. But it is a job. It is something that you are always managing and juggling a million different things, and sometimes coaching might be the very last thing you're doing as a priority. Some of the big things I put on there is the energy, relationships, where I am right now in the high performance realm, like university national team, of course, is results and performance. But I come from a development background, and trying to meld all of those things together and do a good job and have max impact, optimal impact on my athletes is it's very difficult. So the last couple of years I've had to get to know myself a little bit better, and so I could service everybody the best that I could. So why do I go through this in terms of thinking myself as a performer, and what can I do to be better? So raising self-awareness. So all of these things that I'm going through, you guys can think of through your own lens, of course. But for me, this helps answer like why I do what I do. Like I taught for a very long time. Coaching for me was very much something it was a hobby, a way to stay in the sport. And And then when the opportunities came back to go more full time, it took me a long time, and actually a kick from my husband, who said, like, just, why don't you just do it? Like, just do it. Like that's what you're doing anyway. That's where your passion is. So just jump in. So it's funny because I never felt or thought of myself as that. So raising self-awareness on why I do what I do is really important. And it helps me with the second thing, which is making sure I'm finding perspective all the time. I know I do what I do because I want to impact. I want to impact young people. Sport has been a huge part of who I am. It's created my value system, the friendships I have, how I parent with my kids. It's given me so many lessons. That helps me find perspective, especially when I'm in the performance stream, finding results. At Dalhousie, building a program there with the national team with our youth. That when I zone out and while we want great performances and results and all those things, that we're always reminded about how lucky we are to be in sport and what we're doing. I'm really good at seeing the bigger picture when I'm dealing with those, young student athletes or athletes in either program. So that self-awareness has helped me find the perspective. The increasing sustainability for me was something that I really needed to work on. Sustainability, 5-6 years ago, before this opportunity came up in terms of being at Dalhousie and with Canada Soccer, probably much like many of you, I was a volunteer, and did so without asking, for anything back. And there was times, and I'm sure there's a lot of stories out there where I was just like, you know what, this is I've had enough of this. Because there's so much I'm being asked to do in terms of of course, managing the kids, and then you bring parents into the realm, and the time that you're spending away and energy you're spending away from your family, is it worth it to do this? And I really questioned myself, before I got into this full time. Is this something that I see myself? Because I know the energy that it takes. So to avoid the burnout and the fatigue and that feeling of being undervalued, I had to build myself and build some boundaries around what was good for me and what wasn't. So one of the hardest things I've had to learn over the last couple years is the ability to say no when I can't manage to the best of my ability what I'm doing. One of my mentors, Danny Worthington, actually is with Canada Soccer now, been with the senior teams and at the Olympics and on. I was his assistant at the U20 World Cup. He said to me when I was going through this course, I did an evaluation. He said, you need to be more deliberate with the way you spend your time. Like you're good at what you do. You need to, say yes when it's important to say yes, and say no when it's important to say no. You need to be deliberate. Like find one or two things and start to move towards those things and be really, really good at them. So that was a really good moment for me in terms of helping me increase that sustainability. And then for many, like I said, as volunteers or part-time or whatever, it's something important to think about how you manage yourself. One of the exercises I've gone through with some of the courses that I'm taking through the On the Podium is really just a lot of reflection and digging back in. And why I do what I do. And I do have a good handle on that right now because of what I've done, but I didn't in the beginning, which is a bit funny because you spend, 24/7 basically doing what you do and not sure why exactly you're doing that. So spent a lot of time going over these and something for you too. And you look at the questions like, how do you measure success? And I went through a real battle when I went to Dalhousie because my background was development, and I was trying to meld, the development of athletes with, the results that, of course, programs are measured by to some extent anyway. So the first couple years were tough for me in that, and I got some really good feedback from my student athletes because I came from working with 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and then, you're working with young adults after that who are looking for results. And I had to redefine that for myself. And but it's funny, I've come around almost full circle to say that it's still, for me, the impact you have on them as humans, and um, that they're getting better as people and as players. But I'm definitely more demanding on the results side now than I was, and also very funny because as an athlete myself, I was super competitive, so I get it. So I've done a lot of learning that way. I know that for me, the biggest thing on the right hand side there was what you sacrifice. So for all of us here, you sacrifice, I mean, it's time. It's time and it's energy, and coaching is not 9 to 5. There's no chance. It's whenever, really, like you're answering, texts or emails or doing sessions or whatever, really at all hours. So you do sacrifice that time, and I've had to learn to set some boundaries around that, and be protective of and when I'm available, and who and who. There's times in the day that I have to make sure that I'm making sure that I feed myself with energy. So before I became, full time, again, talking with my family, it was really my husband that said, like, that's what you're doing now. Why don't you just get paid for doing it and do it really well? That's what you love to do. So you have to think about those things, and what the balance is there for you. What's important to you. So like I said before, for me, I have to make sure my family's okay first, and that they're good with everything that I'm doing. And then, of course, my passion and what I want to do. I want to give back, and I want to make an impact. So that's sort of the core value that drives me. And the one there on the left, what do you need to be at your best, is something that I did not really think about too much until the last few years again. And I thought of myself as a performer at the highest level. I always thought of it was my athletes, but it's actually me. Because again, if you are not good, then it's very, very difficult to be good for them. So it's a lot of give and take there. This is a neat slide because we say it quite a bit. Time management. You have to be a good time manager, and versus energy management. Well, I can tell you that I'm a mom of 2 kids, full-time jobs and coaching, and there is 1,000 things that I can think I can do in a minute. Like I can manage the time. I can get there and be prepared, and do whatever it is I need to do in the minute, in the hour, and in the 2 hours, and I don't waste much of it. That's for sure. But when you talk about energy management, I think it's a little bit different. It's, you may be getting all those things done in the day or the week or the month, but how are you feeling about it? Like, do you feel, stretched? There's lots of times when I felt absolutely, stretched in 7,000 different directions. And it's time to take a pause and reflect and go, okay, whoa, my energy is at, a 5 when it needs to be at a 7, 8, when I'm dealing with my kids or dealing with my team, especially during this time. Very, really interesting process because I'm very aware of the time management versus energy management. And, I have 2 kids, being homeschooled, and I have a 12-year-old going through grade 6 math. And, he's really bright kid, but he's online now. So for the first few weeks, it was me trying to sit here and do what I'm doing, and then, help him for 10 minutes and then come back here. And then eventually I was just like, you know what, this is not a 9 to 4 or a, whatever it is, school day or work day. I need to give my energy to you right now for an hour and make sure that you're good and that you can feel the energy off me. And, I'll get back to this after supper and get it done. So I had to release that. It looked a little bit different, and I'm sure everybody is in the same boat in how they've dealt with that. So time management versus energy management. With that, these are some of the things that I go through. So at Dalhousie, I'm a high performance manager there. So we do a lot of PD together, which has been really super cool. It's been a great opportunity, for me, again, like I said, to learn from different people in different sports with different levels of experience. And that is really, really valuable. So we actually went through this together, and I've gone through it a couple times, and And every time I do it, it gives me an opportunity to think, and make sure when I think about those energy sources and where I get them in my day and what makes me good, and to be at the best that I can be. These are just little reminders. So for me, and of course you go through it, you do your own. But for me, physically, I work out every single day. It's a non-negotiable for me, and if it doesn't happen, I get kicked out of my house. So it's exercise in the morning, really, for the most part. And I started in the morning when I had kids, because it was the only time in the day that everybody was sleeping or down and nobody needed me. So I did that and do that religiously. I'm doing something every day. Nutrition and sleep, of course. Nutrition for me is pretty good. It's something that coaches, we need to think about quite a bit, because you're going to training typically in the off hours, whether it's early morning or in the evening around supper hour. So being organized and thinking about what it is you need and to fuel your body with. And this is about you, so that you're not going through the drive-through or eating at 9 to 10 at night. That's stuff that's not good for you after training. So that piece there, I feel pretty good at. And of course, the last one with that is the sleep, which, for it's hit or miss, depending on how things are going. If I'm in the middle of a competitive season or, big competition, then it doesn't come as easily, because you are on, and making sure that you're fueled and ready to go for those competitions. Like, for me at Canada Games, and not a lot of sleep, and you're in a different environment, or the World Cup, when you're dealing with time zones and competition and opponents and scouting and things like that. It looks a lot different. So physically, being able to take care of yourself is not only you being a role model, but you're able to perform. Emotionally, for me, one of the biggest things for me that I had to I don't know, it was verbalized, really, that this is probably the biggest thing for me in terms of coaching. What drew me to coaching was the sport, but what drew me to coaching was the people that were in the sport. So I want to have fun. Like, the kids want to have fun. I want to have fun with who I'm spending time with. So I am careful to make sure I surround myself with people that share, a similar passion that I do, but also that have different skill sets than me, so I can learn from them. But really, honestly, when I go to the field, I want to enjoy the people that I'm working with, and I want to be able to talk to people that are positive and solution oriented, and people that really want to dig in and bring the best out of young people. So this corner here, this emotional corner, was probably and is the thing that keeps bringing me back. I want to work with people that have a similar mindset and bring me energy. So I know who those people are, and I'm very careful now, after talking with Danny, quite a bit on different things, on being more deliberate on who and what bring me energy and spend my time on. The mental part, if you think about that as coaches, what time of day do you work best? I never thought about that, really, until, because I was like, well, what time of day am I not doing something else? So for me, I've discovered early mornings best for me, especially after a workout, and it's quiet and I'm able to think. I work best, well, now it's home in the front room, but I need to be more isolated. I work best with music for me. So when you talk about anything else you need, music for me plays a big role in being able to sort of shut everything out. And you have to think about what works best for you. Spiritually, I guess, the purpose, why you're doing what you're doing, taking time to reflect, read, what are you reading and watching, and who do you talk or listen to. And I think it's very, very easy right now to get super distracted on the million other things that are happening in the world right now. So I'm careful, on social media. I do that, but not particularly often do I engage unless I feel that it's very, very important. And I try to set boundaries around, the here and now and things of what I need to be seeing and watching, because I need to maintain my energy. I know you've all felt it. We've all felt it, like sort of like, I've had enough. I can't watch or read that anymore. So making sure that you have something positive that you're going towards, and that you're taking something from whatever it is you're reading or watching. That piece is important as well. The last thing here for me is one of the things I picked up from my course too is the notion of blend versus balance. And one of the best activities that I've done as a coach was actually January, putting together not a yearly plan like like the physical periodization for athletes, but my yearly plan, like because I was doing, of course, I'm at Dalhousie, but I'm also with the national teams, and there's training camps, and there's this and there's that. And so thinking of my day before as a balance of, okay, like I'm, working for this amount of hours, I'm working out for this amount of hours, I have to go, take my kids to sport or help with the homework. And it just never, ever balances out in the day if you think of it in the short term. But I did an activity where we did basically a yearly plan, and I like color coded it. So there's certain times of the year, and for all you coaches, it's depending, basketball, hockey, whatever, there are certain times of the year that you're going to be like guts out, like on the ice or on the court or on the field, and you're not going to have that balance. It's impossible to achieve. So if you think of it as a blend, and this helped me and my family as well. Listen, like for this time of the year, for me, obviously with Dalhousie, it's the fall. I'm not going to be here as much. I won't be present as much. I can't give you as much of my energy, but I know that, November, December, I'm much more able to do that. So I need to be very careful about, scheduling in time and blocking off time where it's just with my family or just with something, something else that I like to do. So when I zone out and I look at the calendar I have now, if this were normal times, I would have been at World Cup qualifiers, and then would have came home and doing camps at Dal, and then getting ready for training camp and things like that. So in it, I had blocked out like green patches of, here's 4 days where, we're going to go away, or I'm not working. We're going to do something else. So it really helped me to see the blend in a week and a month and 3 months and 6 months. And especially for those of you that are working in sport, I think that's really, really important, and sharing it with people, sharing it with your family and saying, look, like, let's take a look at this calendar. Let's take a look at the sort of, I call them the red zones, when your energy is solely focused on your team and your program and what you're doing. And there's some yellow zones there where you can float back and forth, whatever that looks like. And then there's some green zones where, like, this is for us. So that has really helped me mentally, and probably in my family as well, but selfishly probably me more, because I know that I've communicated that with them, and we feel good about that time that I can be here, because a lot of moms, and I know a lot of dads too, have that, that pressure to, I'm missing something. And this helps me say that, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to be here for that. I won't be around for that, but I'm going to be here for that, and I'm going to be here all in. And, my kids, both my kids, I consider them very lucky. They've been surrounded by some pretty amazing young people, and they had the opportunity to come to training camps and come to games and travel a little bit, and get to know what sport and the true value of sport is. So that concludes. Yeah, and the last one is just who you become as a result of the chase is the most important thing. So just enjoying your coaching journey, and making sure that you take that time, and now's a great time to zone out and reflect on what it is you do, why it is you do it, and how can you be a little bit better at it for other people by taking care of yourself. That's it. Sped through that, Kirsty, didn't I? That was like...
Oh, that was great. Thank you, Cindy. I always take so much from your presentation, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
If you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves or type in the chat box. I will read out loud. Michelle made a great comment that a friend of her once gave her guidance with respect to balance. So she told her, what value is your yes if you never say no? So I thought that was kind of interesting and should share that aloud. Kind
Yeah,
of
that's a
going to the
great one.
point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great, I'm going to write that one down.
So feel free to unmute or type in the chat box any questions or comments.
Cindy, so I'm with Ringette, and this is normally downtime anyway to some degree. So it's more downtime than I'm used to in terms of coaching. So to maintain a level of performance when really I don't necessarily have a team that I'm affiliated with, I feel a little lost trying to support my athlete. I don't really have a definitive group of athletes. I do have one team, but typically I have more than one on the go, I guess. So you know where you're the Dalhousie coach. You know those programs that you're with, and you know the athletes you've got. So I guess what would be your recommendation in terms of keeping on my toes or keeping a plan when our sport body is still trying to figure out what our season might look like, and how to prep when we don't know what our sport will be.
I know it's a great question. We're all in that uncertain territory right now, and I think one of the biggest things for me that's helped me, and yes, I do have a program. I'm also with the youth teams too that have qualifying and everything that's postponed. So what do you do with those kids, and how do you stay connected? So I've started creating some sessions, and I think with you, Tracy, with your background, is it with your sport governing body reaching out and saying, okay, let's go through this. In August, we're going to be, let's just say, oh my God, don't spread that around and be like, what? Wait a minute. In August, we're allowed back. But let's say in August, we can have, 10 athletes on the ice or off the ice, or, okay, what does that look like for us? Like, I had a really interesting conversation the other day about, individual development and the power in that, because we hardly ever as coaches get the opportunity to do that, to really dig into a position or a partnership. And for you guys in Ringette, like you hardly do too. Like you're always you're fighting for your sport to get your kids together. But what if you were able to create a package otherwise that said, hey, here's some great individual things you can do, or we can do when we get back together. How do we as coaches start to really get good at breaking down a skill and helping an athlete get better, which is really interesting, because I got to tell you, that's one of the things that I don't do very well. And I don't do that very well because everything came very easily to me in terms of skill. So it was hard for me to break it down for a kid that couldn't. And it sounds funny, you're a coach. I mean, my strengths do lie in other areas, and I can, but I've been really forced going through this to break things down and help kids, virtually, and creating plans. I've never thought so much about, what makes a great midfielder, and what can I do for a midfielder if I see them 3 times a week for an hour. What do they need to hear? What's going to impact them? So I think for all of us on here, and for you, Tracy, you have so much background. I think we have to start thinking in the next 6 months differently on how we present our programs, and that will keep you busy.
Yeah, you're overwhelming me right now.
Yeah,
that's good. I have been a little, now I've all been busy with work and trying to manage different things that wouldn't have been in my life had this not been a pandemic. So I got distracted for sure. But then it's like, okay, I should be supporting these athletes. I see, my own kids, their coaches are doing various things, and I'm like, oh, I haven't really done, so I'm trying, but I also don't necessarily see the value in kids who are on screens constantly connecting with them by a screen. So I guess I think they get enough screen time. I'd like to try and find other ways. So, and maintain my own performance level as a coach, because, I feel a little rusty, really.
Yeah, I know. I think everybody's going to get back out there and feeling that. And I think the first month, especially when we get back with our athletes, will be just connecting and, taking a deep breath and enjoying it. But I also think you don't need to. I talked to my captains last week, because we do train a couple times a week on screen. And I just said, look, is it too much? Like, or is the connection valuable enough? It's not necessarily the physical outcome. It's the social, emotional, and mental outcome. And right now they felt it was good. So I would just, taking the temperature of your athletes. And some of kids are working, they're trying to get work and be busy. And anyway, I think for me, it's just making sure you keep taking the temperature of not only yourself, but who you're dealing with. But focusing on what a modified program looks like in my sport has been really helpful for me.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Cindy. And thank you, Tracy, for asking that, because I've been struggling with that too as a fellow ring coach. I have received a couple questions privately, so I'll read those aloud. So Cindy, how do you explain to other people when you need a break? So for example, employers.
Yeah. Oh, that's a tough one, because I think it depends on everybody's situation is different that way. But I will always go back. My mom always said it since I was really young. She's like, look, if you are not good, then no one else is good. And don't apologize for not being good. I mean, and stepping in and saying, you know what, I do need a break. Or I think one valuable thing you could do is think about alternatives. So is it like breaks scary for coaches? It's scary when you say, I'm going to break. What does that mean? I'm going to step away, for like, is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Is it a longer time? Or, you may want to think of it in another way and think, what is it in my day or my week that's pulling at me? And how can I get some help with this? What else could it look like? So thinking of alternatives, when you think of those things about what's pulling at your energy, and identifying what that is it a parent? Is it another coach? Is it, athlete? Or you are like, she said there, like, just saying yes too much, trying to be a little bit more deliberate. So, coming to an employer with, making sure you're open and honest. And I know that's scary for a lot of people. I know male and female, but it might be maybe a little scarier for females in that way, because I think there's times when you worry about getting emotional about it, and you don't need to apologize for it.
Great, thanks, Cindy. And another question. What was the most important resource that helped you with your transition from development to national/high performance coaching?
That's a great question. The best resource for me was being around people that knew more than me. And I don't mean like in different ways. So basically, I was surrounded by people that were really good at what they did and had different skill sets than I did. When you're alone or acting singularly, and most volunteer coaches or even provincial coaches you are relying so heavily on your skill set just to survive. Like, I know this works for me because, well, I'm here right now, and I just don't have time to do anything else. For me, I would rely on my communication skills and, my ability to be organized or finish or like fit that whatever minute in the day I needed to fit it in, I would get it done. So when I started to transition, I started to be exposed, and I deliberately exposed myself to others that had a different skill set than I did. Same mindset, but different skill sets. And then I started to open up too, and like you say, be vulnerable. And I know that's something, whether it's used or overused or whatever, but just really started to open myself up to, that's a cool perspective, or, I need to get better at that. And so in terms of that shift, from development to results. I did that shift, and in the last year, I'm actually okay with, sounds funny, but still being development and having the results attached, if that makes sense. Like I'm in the business of I'm still in the business of development. That's what I'm developing student athletes, humans. Like that's how I feel. That's my overarching, core value. But I have definitely added in some of the, being deliberate in some of the things that I'm doing, because I'm surrounded by others that know more than me. And I'm just stealing from them. It's a good question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. Great answer, Cindy. And I will add too, like I know Nova Scotia is small and maybe your sport community, especially in coaching, is small. And don't be afraid to reach out to other sports too, to surround yourself with great people. I know, especially being in this role for over a year, I've learned so much from other sports outside of my main sport. So, and people love to share. So reach out to them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through the private chat. I don't think I received any more questions, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to speak up through your mic or send me them. There was a comment that I received. So this person just started back at her gym, and because they've been off for so long, we're doing a really slow return to sport to avoid injury and soreness. So she's taken everything back to basics in development stage. So just kind of starting all over again, even as a coach. So that's a good suggestion of kind of how to ease into things once you're back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're not dealing with not as much anyway with like tactics of sport right now. It's health and safety, getting back in, injury prevention, and that skill development piece that we can really dig into, because that's what we're faced with. That's what we're going to be faced with, I think, for the next little bit anyway.
Mm-hmm. And someone commented on the employer question. So maybe if you did do that yearly planning activity and then were able to communicate with that with your employer, similar to how Cindy shared with her family, that might ease that communication piece as well. So yeah, great suggestion.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it raises other self-awareness on what it is you're doing every day and what it looks like for you.
Mm-hmm. All right, any last questions or comments, please feel free to use the chat box or open your mic. All right. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. That was great as always. And we really appreciate all your insight and sharing your experiences and advice with us. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. And stay tuned for our sessions next week. We have Lori on Wednesday evening, and then we have another session on Thursday. So starting up in June, we'll probably be just reducing our amount of sessions to 2 a week. And we might have the odd 3 a week like this week, but we realize some people are going back to work full time in the office, so we're gonna start reducing the amount that we offer. But a friendly reminder that all of this is posted on YouTube, so if you wanna go back and rewatch any sessions, you can check it out there. So thank you again, Cindy, and thanks everyone for attending.
Thanks, Kirsty. It's great. Thanks, everybody.